Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, Apple Day, iPhone 6s, new Apple TV, and did you expect the iPad Pro's pencil? AMD's Radeon R9 reviewed, 5 and 6 terabyte Western Digital blacks and reds, viewer questions, and a great set of headphones, all coming up next on TWiCH.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiCH.
Bandwidth for TWiCH is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 332, recorded September 10th, 2015. Apple Day and the Radeon R9 Nano review.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with free step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to ifixit.com/twit and enter the code TWiCH at checkout. And by ProXPN. ProXPN is a virtual private network that allows you to use the internet the way it should be, anonymously and without oversight. Save 50% off a 12-month subscription. Go to proxpn.com/twit and use the code TWiCH, TWiCH, at checkout. And by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/twitch and enter the promo code TWiCH.
Welcome to TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, TWiCH's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most engaging, most delightful, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, most social information about computer hardware in the history of the planet. And outside of the most social part, I think we have that covered. I want to give a quick shout out to our man behind the switcher right now. Burke is feeling ill. So if you have some positive energy to throw his way, please do so, because we don't want him to die, because then somebody else would have to learn how to use that terrible machine in Petaluma, and it's a fate I wish on no one. So Burke,
if he does it while we're doing the show, do we just have to keep on going forever? Because I don't want that. Like somebody has to move on to the next thing.
Okay, right now I'm going to look up Petaluma Fire Department.
Fire and rescue. It's pretty close by. I know where the fire department is there.
Yeah. Because if I call 911, I'll get 911 in Richmond, which isn't going to help.
Right.
Look, I've been sick for 3 weeks. It's all right. I'm not getting any worse. Just getting better.
Okay.
You know,
right, good to know.
Which makes me think of Skylake processors.
Oh.
Core i5 6600Ks are down to $239.99. The Core i7 6700Ks are finally available. There has consistently been 4 in stock on Amazon.com for $469.55. So the supplies, as they say, are limited, and the price is at least $120 over what it should be. But hopefully this trickle will turn into a flood, and I can finally build my next video editing gaming machine.
It is good news, I guess, that they're even kind of at that position right now, right? It
Right.
seems like a step into what we expect will be actual stock and availability in the not too distant future. And I just did a quick check in Newegg. And of course, the first return for 6700K is a high yield replacement toner cartridge. So I'm going to guess that they still don't have any of the processors in there either. No, if they have a listing for it, out of stock, and no idea. Oh, it can only be purchased with a combo as well. So no Newegg's, no help for you either. Another week goes by, another instance where Patrick does not buy the processor he wants because he can't. You've got the motherboard in that bright
ECS.
gold box.
This bright gold box, yeah. I wish I could light it better. This is the Z170 Claymore from ECS, which is someday going to have a processor. Someday I will make it whole. Probably. Yeah. Something that made a lot of people whole yesterday, I think. It was okay, interesting day. Apple Day yesterday, the fall announcement with the new iPhones, and of course, new Apple TV, and the iPad Pro, which I didn't really expect, and certainly not a lot of people talked about.
Right.
The iPad Pro is something different from the people at Apple. Effectively a 12.9-inch, 13-inch tablet, sticking with the now traditional 4:3-ish screen ratio for an iPad. And if you keep scrolling down a little bit farther, the thing that kind of shocked people was not the Retina quality display, not the ridiculous number of pixels, not the new A9X processor, but the Pencil, more properly known as the Apple Pencil for iPad Pro. Which is, it's funny. We talked about this a lot yesterday on Tech Thing. Wacom finally has a competitor of meaning and intensity for the first time in a long time.
Yep.
I think it's going to be very interesting to watch how this does. The other thing, if you scroll down a little bit farther, that was kind of striking about this new iPad announcement, this iPad Pro, which obviously is for content creators and professionals, not for mere mortals consuming content or answering emails or playing on Facebook. But there it is. Wow. Does that look like a Surface or what? That's
Surface,
the smart
never heard
keyboard. Of it. Yeah. Well, Surface is finally now $1 billion a year business, so it's apparently moving in the right direction. But that was kind of the big announcement. Was the iPad Pro, bigger, better, faster processor. The Pencil, something that Steve Jobs invariably said, if there's a stylus, you're doing it wrong, which led to some really amazing sort of back and forth on Twitter yesterday, mostly coming down to the sort of like Steve said it was wrong, so obviously Apple has failed, versus the he's dead, he's not in charge anymore. It's really hard to innovate and make decisions from the grave. But if anybody could do it, I think Steve Jobs would be.
He did say that, I think 6 years ago as well.
Yeah.
Right.
A long time ago. The latency is supposed to be spectacular, i.e., everything you draws in real time. iPad Pro knows whether you're using your pencil. Oh, goodness. Let me try reading with actual reading. iPad Pro knows whether you're using your finger or Apple Pencil. When iPad Pro senses Apple Pencil, the subsystem scans its signal at an astounding 240 times per second, giving it twice the data points it normally collects with your finger. This data combined with Apple design software means there's only milliseconds between the image you have in your mind and the one you see on the display. It's pressure sensitive, which would seem really obvious for a tablet, although some people yesterday were acting like no one had ever thought of pressure sensitivity with a stylus. It's smart. It looks like a very well thought out stylus. 12 hours of battery life, and then you plug it into a lightning port or lightning connector to recharge it. 15 seconds of charging equals 30 minutes of battery life, which I thought was kind of fascinating. And then they did a whole bunch of apps, primarily Adobe apps and medical apps. It'll be really interesting to see how well this does. $790 for the iPad Pro, $99 for the Apple Pencil. So it is not a given that's going to be available in November. So
that's a November thing. For me, it's interesting. I have often considered buying a Surface because I like the idea of having a stylus. For what I do here is, honestly, when I'm doing testing, is I'm still using a old school college ruled pad of paper that I take notes on this is the product, this is the status of this product testing, here's what I have tested, here's what I still need to test, here's, while I'm at home, I want to remember to do this when I get to the house, etc.
Right.
I for a short period of time, I used something. I think it was a Lenovo 2-in-1 or a Yoga of some kind. No, it was a Lenovo ThinkPad that had an active stylus and used Microsoft OneNote. It actually was pretty handy. And I know Microsoft was on stage. I'm sure they have a OneNote version for iOS. So it's an interesting kind of thing for me. I still don't know if I fall behind or fall in the category of people that believes the iPad, even in this scenario, is going to be a productivity device, right? Am I going to take this with me when I go to IDF and try to cover the show in that way, right? There's no SD card slot on it. There's no like external connectivity. So if I take pictures on a camera and I want to move it over here to do some photo editing and upload a thing, like you can't really access a file structure still in iOS. So there's still like fundamentally a difference in what I think a productivity device should have the capabilities of and what the iPad Pro seems to offer.
Obviously, you're not Johnny Ives.
No, I don't. What I don't do is only draw things.
Right.
I guess right? And only
that's why
type
there's the
up
optional
single
keyboard.
pages. Right.
And
I'm sure it's
to
great
their
for
credit,
email.
with iOS 9, so with iOS 9, they will be doing multitasking and be able to split the screen, which is a huge difference. And iOS 9 coming out September 16th.
Right.
You know, it's an
Just something
interesting
about
move for Apple.
still no file structure. Like, I don't know, something about somebody's tweeted out yesterday. It was like, how do I get my pictures on it? There's no SD card. And I'm like, well, that starts a whole chain of thoughts of like, okay, you wanted to do, like, I'm not going to use iTunes to transfer my pictures over to my iPad Pro so that I can like annotate and draw on them or something like that. Like, I don't know. There's still, I want to get one in and try to use it and actually see what limitations it has. And I'm beginning to wonder if maybe my productivity workflow just differs drastically from the vast majority of people out there that are only sending email or editing
So
Word docs without.
let's step back for a second, because, well, I mean, first of all, you know, in Apple's universe, nobody uses anything other than, you know, an iPhone or an iPad to take photos, right? And why would you take a photo with anything less than the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus, which we'll get into in a second?
Right.
But those offer the opportunity for wireless transfer. Apple does have a Lightning to SD card reader. There's somewhere in my knapsack right now is one of those that allows you to plug an SD card into the base of a tablet or phone. They do a Lightning to USB camera adapter that allows you to copy the photos off the phone. So, you know, for an additional $15 to $30, depending on the, you know, which device you're getting. And there's a bunch of third-party Lightning accessories that are designed to adapt various forms of camera memory sticks to the single, sole, and only connector, you know, on an iPad or a current generation iPhone. So in one sense, that option is there. And a lot of people I know now can't remember the last time they actually used a camera. But, you know, the fact that I thought it was curious, the fact that Apple actually came up with the pencil, it's not a stylus and it's not a pen, and a keyboard, you know, a magnetically attached keyboard thing, and brought those out along with Adobe and Microsoft and the the medical software company, means they're obviously thinking very strongly about people using iPads in ways other than going bink, 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 bink. Bing, bing, bing. You know what I mean, with the screen. So that in that sense, they are recognizing that there are workflow options. And, you know, the design aesthetic is such that you get, you know, the goal, I guess, is one hole in the machine for everything, which sounds kind of naughty when you say it that way, if you think about it the wrong way, across all of the, you know what I mean, the whole, you know, the whole design aesthetic at Apple, the whole thing is like, you know, reduce the number of ports in the device, reduce the number of connectors on the device, you know, reduce the size of the device, make the, you know what I mean, whether you're talking about a Mac Pro, a MacBook Pro, you know, an Air, the iPad Pro, an iPad, or an iPhone 6, they are all going to sort of like, you get this port, and I guess we'll also give you a headphone jack, since not all of you are smart enough to use Bluetooth. Beats headphones. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But I think it is acknowledging that there are different ways of working with a tablet, and that they want a chunk of that market in a very big way. $799 available in November, another $99 for the pen. It's interesting. New processor. They made some pretty spectacular claims for the processor. You know, and I also say the Wi-Fi plus cellular model, which is only the 128 gigabyte version, that's going to sell for a cool $1,079. The Wi-Fi model that starts at $799 is 32 gigabytes, which is very entry level and not a lot of storage, especially if you take a lot of photos. Or want to play around with video. 128 gigabyte. They basically have 32 gigabyte and 128 gigabyte Wi-Fi models, and you're paying $949 for the 128 gigabyte Wi-Fi model, which of course won't contain GPS. 264 pixels per inch, 2732 by 2048 resolution, the A9X processor with the M9 Motion coprocessor, not the cool new camera from the iPhone 6S. 1080p HD video recording. I thought it was kind of interesting. You know, should we talk about the new iPhones or the Apple TV? Because there's,
I guess let's move on to the iPhones.
Okay.
I mean, what else is there to say except now you can get it in rose gold, right?
Well, it was funny because it was pretty hype filled even for an Apple presentation. Not that all presentations aren't full of hype, but yeah, I thought it was funny. They were like, everything's changed, and it's like, well, no, you've got rose gold, you've got a better camera, a better processor. It's rose gold. I mean,
see,
you know, so.
win.
No, I'm laughing because the lineup now is the iPhone 5S, which is basically the free phone with contract for companies that are still doing contracts. The iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus, which are now available in silver and space gray. The iPhone 6S and 6S Plus, which are silver, space gray, gold, and as Ryan mentioned, that I obsessed over yesterday on Tech Thing, rose gold. I think it's profoundly stupid that they start at 16 gigabytes, but I guess it reaches a price point for them. Like iPhone 5S, 16 and 32 gigabytes, iPhone 6, 16 and 32 gigabytes, iPhone 6 Plus, 16 and 64 gigabytes, iPhone 6S, 16, 64, and 128 gigabytes. I do not understand why they're not just doing 32 gigabytes across all the iPhone 6s. 3D Touch has been added to the display, which will work with iOS 9 to allow you to do things like peek. So if I'm looking at email and I press gently and it peaks, and I press harder and it opens up the email. But effectively the same size screen as before, 4.7 inches or 5.5 inches. But the Force Touch is kind of a big deal, I think, in changing the interaction. The A9 processor, they're claiming some performance increases, which I don't think is going to be necessary for most things, until you get to the fact that they're claiming the 4K demo video they ran in the presentation yesterday was actually edited on an iPhone 6S or 6 Plus. The 12 megapixel iSight camera, 1.22 micron pixels. Those are tiny pixels. F2.2 aperture, which has been pretty consistent forever on the cameras in terms of the aperture size. Live photos, which essentially means you take a picture and it keeps capturing video for a few seconds more, so it will give motion, like if your kid's smiling or if there's water rippling in the background. That's a gimmick to me. Optical image stabilization. They're claiming improved noise reduction, improved local tone mapping. There's a sapphire crystal lens cover. They had that before. True tone flash, that's not new. Most of it's pretty much the same, except that now they're adding in 4K video recording, 30 frames per second, 3840 by 2160 4K video recording. They are now using for the front time, the FaceTime camera, they call it a 5 megapixel camera, which is a big jump up from the 1.2 megapixel selfie camera on the iPhone 6. And then what they call retina flash, which is essentially the screen will pulse. The screen will just flash super bright, so it basically illuminates your face with the
It's a
screen
good idea
on it. It's smart.
Yeah.
It really is. 23 different LTE flavors. They're claiming they've doubled the performance of the Wi-Fi, which I'm not entirely sure how they might have done. Battery times look to be almost exactly the same. Lightning connector. It's, better camera, faster processor, Force Touch on the screen, rose gold. And, the other thing that was interesting, and they've kind of come up with an application to make it easier to move from Android to iPhone, or a new application. And then the iPhone upgrade program, which I think they're going to make a fortune on, which is essentially, you go into an Apple store, it's an unlocked iPhone for $32.41 a month starting. That's the entry level price. And then you get a new a phone once a year. Every 12 installments, you can get a new iPhone. $32.41 a month for 16 gigabytes, $36.58 a month for 64 gigabytes, $40.75 a month for 128 gigabytes if you want a 6S. I think they're going to make a fortune on those. September 12th, the reservations open for the new phone. September 20th. Well, because a lot of people want a $900 phone, but they don't have $900. So Apple's going to help them get a new phone every year.
I think I saw a video with who's the CEO of T-Mobile? I can't remember his name. Very eccentric fella. But they are going to offer, I guess, a lower price per month for the iPhone 6s and 6x Plus than what Apple has. I think was it $22 a month for the 6s and $27 for the Plus, something like that. Obviously, I assume that means you have to have a contract, but you can then upgrade your phone kind of at any point as long as you continue to make those payments. So it's interesting to see how the infrastructure of mobile devices and mobile carriers are kind of adapting to we're not going to subsidize your phone, but we got to make it look like you're still getting it really cheap in that angle. So I'm pretty interested in this. I think I'm going to try to pick up one of these phones. It's been a long time since I've used an iPhone personally for any kind of extended period of time.
They're very nice.
Man, and I'm not going to get the 16 gig version because I'm not dumb. So you got to move up to 64. If I get the Plus, I'm looking at $900 probably or something like that to buy it.
All of a sudden, $360 a year.
Gets you. I'm kind of debating. Like, well, maybe I'll just sign up for T-Mobile, pay the $27 a month, but then I get into, now I'm trapped. Now I'm going to either pay the whole price anyway or upgrade to a new device every year, which is obviously what they want you to do. So,
well, they would very much like to take money out of you each and every year, and not every couple of years. They are a corporation, and the goal of the corporation is, of course, to make more money. Two last things. The iPad Mini 4 was kind of snuck in there, which is essentially the iPad Mini 2 with an increased processor. Basically more process. It's an iPad Air 2 level processor stuffed into an iPad Mini, which is going to enable it to deal with multitasking in iOS 9, a little bit better performance improvement. Other than that, it's still a 7.9-inch, multi-touch display, 2048 by 1356 resolution, but it's stepping up to the A8 chip. So that'll be a nice performance bump over the A7 and get it ready for iOS 9. Essentially, other than that, the same, actually, take it back. It's got the 8-megapixel camera. It really does have the innards of the iPad 2 inside of a Mini. So it's 8-megapixel camera instead of a 5-megapixel camera. And that actually is available now, starting from $399 for 16 gigs of storage to $599 for 128 gigabytes. And I got to say, I absolutely hate the fact that they've just refused to add external storage onto the iPads or iPhones.
iPhones, I kind of get. iPad Pro, that makes no sense to me. But yes, go ahead.
No. It was interesting. Let's take a moment to thank our first sponsor, and then we will come back and talk about the Apple TV, the AM Radeon R9 Nano, and the big news that dropped about AMD this morning, but we'll tell you about that in a second. Oh, my goodness. iFixit.com, TWiT. The enter code is TWiCH. If you've been watching the show or listening to the show, we're big fans of iFixit. I love the people. I want to say those guys, but those people, because there's a lot of men and women that work down there. It's pretty cool. A little something new from us. We've talked a lot about their screwdrivers and various other tools. We're going to talk about the Repair Business Toolkit. I've seen one of these mocked up down at the iFixit headquarters. The name says it all. It's everything you need to kickstart your repair business or take your tech go bag to the next level. It's one each of all the best iFixit tools, nicely packed in a custom shoulder bag to make on-the-go repair efficient and effective. The Repair Business Toolkit includes the ProTech Toolkit. That's the iFixit standard for repair toolkit. 70 tools to help you dish sweet repair justice. I use that thing freaking every day. The Magnetic Project Mat, which actually, look at that, kids. I've got one right back here that I was just using when I was dealing with my incredible iPhone 6S waterborne failure. And right there, it says, oh, there it is, iPhone screws. Yeah, because you laugh, but those pentalobe screws are tiny, and this is magnetic, so they stuck to them. It is a joy. The portable anti-static mat, electrostatic discharge, is the silent killer. Use this mat and have a safe workspace anywhere. The ProTech screwdriver set, pro-grade screwdriver set for repetitive, heavy-use jobs, which is actually really well made. I have a set of those. The eye opener, the iFixit invented tool to apply consistent heat directly to adhesive-laden components. Use that to repair an iPad 2. Heavy-duty suction cups for iMac screens and heavy displays. Do not use those on an iPhone 6S screen. Digital multimeter for precise diagnosis and troubleshooting, a bunch of plastic opening tools. We like to call those spudgers, cleaning tools like dust blower, screen cleaner, microfiber cloth, and a brush. It's all put together in a custom iFixit messenger bag that keeps everything organized and ready. Perfect for storage or to take to your repair shop or on the go. It is the all-in-one kit to kickstart your repair business with a complete arsenal of tools. The giant bundle is available at a steep discount over regular prices because it's all in the box. $249.95 is $100 less than buying everything individually. Buy it for yourself, for a new employee, give it as a gift, and best of all, iFixit has the guides and tutorials. If you've never been to iFixit.com, pause the show and open up that window, or open up that window and look while you're listening to us. Fix your friend's cracked iPad screen, swap the battery in your neighbor's iPhone, build or upgrade a laptop or a PC. The possibilities are endless with the Repaired Business Toolkit and the guides up at iFixit.com. They are so good. Listen, when you visit iFixit.com/twit, you can save $10 off any purchase of $50 or more by entering the code TWiCH. That's TWiCH at checkout. iFixit.com. Use the code TWiCH to save $10. We want to thank iFixit for their support of the show. Thank you, iFixit. Indeed. The future of television is apps. I like Tim Cook. He's pretty awesome, but I about peed myself laughing when he said that. Well, duh.
Yeah, everybody has done that for a long time.
Yeah, but now, and now that my obnoxious mocking is aside, the long-awaited upgrade to the Apple TV is here. It is not 4K. It is, however, 10 centimeters taller than the previous Apple TV. It's still HDMI only, and it starts with the Siri remote. So there's several things going on inside the Apple TV. So tvOS, which essentially they designed the OS to function a lot better, thank goodness. If for no other reason than as somebody who has a lot invested in iTunes content from the early days of the iPhone, the fact that I can actually double click on the home key to pull up applications rather than having to click 32 times to dig my way out of something running on an Apple TV and load the next application I want. Thank goodness, to say it the least. But essentially, tvOS, App Store, Siri integration, and you may be saying, well, the Amazon Fire TV lets me talk to it and find shows. And I realized yesterday on Tech Thing, I need to find somebody that actually has an Amazon Fire TV, so I can see if it's now scanning anything other than paid Amazon Prime results. Because that was kind of the big bummer about the launch of the Amazon Fire TVs. It didn't matter. You may be able to get something for free, but Amazon Fire TV, when it launched, was basically giving you search results for one thing, the thing that Amazon made money off of. And what's crazy is that if you say, if you ask for something on the Apple TV, if you ask Siri, it will give you all of the things across a bunch of different applications: Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Showtime. MLB had an amazing demo that allowed you to, they were not only showing the fact that they're doing, 60 frames per second video, which is higher than terrestrial broadcast, but picture-in-picture reminders, a lot of stuff that we would associate with phone applications that we haven't certainly seen on an Apple TV. There's an app store for the Apple TV. So, the short answer is no 4K, which makes sense. They don't have the 4K content. There's not a lot of 4K televisions. Siri will allow you to talk things. Siri, I want to watch a comedy. Siri, I only want to watch, give me comedies with Kristen Wiig. Okay, I want to watch that one. It'll search across multiple, applications or sources in your system. It's still HDMI, more powerful processor. $150 for the 32 gigabyte version, $200 for the 64 gigabyte version. The remote's Bluetooth 4.0. Finally, the fact that they were still using IR remotes, I always find a little, emotionally traumatic. But there's also an IR transmitter, which means it'll be able to control the volume of your television. Lightning connector for charging. They're claiming 3 months of battery life on a single charge. USB-C connector, presumably for additional storage. Ethernet's still there, 802.11ac with MIMO, which is a big plus. And, it's still 10100 base T Ethernet, so it's not gigabit Ethernet.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says right here, 10100 base T Ethernet. Which is more than enough for streaming, but doesn't seem smart to me.
Yeah, it seems, I don't know. Yeah. Well, whatever.
I suspect the vast majority of people running this are using 802.11a, GN, or AC.
Yeah.
AC's really tempting. 1080p, 60 frames per second max. Other than that, it's pretty much an Apple TV.
I mean,
Apple
it's
TV with
similar.
better
It's interesting the similarities
games.
between what this launch was and the Google. What do they call it? It's just Google TV. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Google TV,
Google.
like very similar in terms of, hey, you want to voice search, you want to search across multiple places, and it really comes down to whoever's going to have the best application support and kind of developer support, third-party developer support into that platform, right? Because as of today, Google TV still doesn't have the capability to search Netflix, right? It'll search through Hulu and it'll search for Google Play and it'll search through HBO Go.
Right.
But it won't search through Netflix, which is kind of one of those things that Netflix had decided to do. So it'll be interesting that, and I'm also a little surprised. Like, I mean, everybody had been talking about Apple TV re-release or refresh, but it always was in conjunction with some major partnership content creator, which they don't have, right?
Well,
which is a little bit surprising.
That was kind of the suspicion, is that there was going to be this a la carte bundled cable style deal that would be brokered through Apple. And if that is happening, it's certainly going through a long drawn out series of negotiations. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen before Christmas. There's two things I should add into this. If you go over the games and more segment of the Apple TV page on apple.com, Burke, you'll see one, I forgot to mention, there's sort of like motion controllers and accelerometers that will allow you to use the new remote a la like the Wii, and that whole left side or the top side of it is actually sort of a touch screen or a touchpad type device. And then they're offering third-party controllers, game controllers for this. So, they've got a bunch of games up here: Rayman Adventures, Manticore Rising, Crossy Multiplayer, which is really exciting because my kids love Crossy, which is essentially a Frogger remake, Guitar Hero. And then the demo that made me kind of laugh, took us off, was the Airbnb. That was one of the big demos yesterday on the Apple TV. And some shopping. Apparently, they think shopping is going to be a big deal, which made a lot of people I know laugh, because shopping on television sets has been failing literally for decades. But maybe Apple can make it happen. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to buy an Apple TV because we use the Apple TV for a lot of stuff in our house, and we've got a lot invested in Apple TV or iTunes programming. So as soon as I can get one of those in, I will review it. I'd like to be able to order it now, but I can't order it now. And it's funny, it's because it's launching, I guess, in October in like 80 countries simultaneously, which I thought was really interesting. And yes, it is the Siri remote. Siri's finally got her name on something. Yeah. And the touch surface remote, as somebody who uses iTunes a lot or the Apple TV a lot, it's going to be so nice. The control, if you run an Apple TV, the control changes alone will justify buying a new one, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Western Digital 6 terabyte black and 6 terabyte red Pro review. Bigger and faster, says Alan Malventano. And I'm not entirely sure if there's really any point in going beyond that.
I do want to know, are you moving the AMD section to a later portion of the show?
I just opened up the wrong tab because I suck, man. Right? I mean, we pretty much just wrapped up the 6 terabyte black and red. They are bigger, they are faster, they generate heat.
They're bigger, they're faster. They're way less expensive than SSDs, as it turns out. Still. But they're surprisingly fast for hard drives, I guess. They're faster than we expected them to be.
Areal density, man. That's a big deal. When you make the individual bits really tiny and sweep them under the head really fast, you move a lot of data. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's like the 5 terabyte is $264. The 5 terabyte black is $264. It's, basically 5.3 cents a gigabyte. The 6 terabytes, $294. It's less than 5 cents a gigabyte. The Red Pro, again, you're looking around a nickel, 5 to 5.4 cents per gigabyte. Alan says, quote, with the Red Pro coming in at only $5 more than the Black, I'm inclined to suggest the Red Pro for single drive usage to anyone who has the slightest possibility of migrating the drive to a RAID 1 or larger at some point in the future. Regardless of warranty or track record, you never want 5 to 6 terabytes of your data relying on a single device. Wise words. 5 years for the warranty on that. So, yeah. While my go-to recommendation for low-cost bulk storage will stay with the slower spinning red and green models, those looking for high-performance storage in the 5 terabyte and 6 terabyte capacities can't go wrong with the new Black Edition drives. Those needing more performance from their NAS or RAID should definitely go with the Red Pro, provided they can handle the added power draw and heat output that comes with 7,200 RPM drive speeds with a 5-year warranty, and coming in at a competitive cost per gigabyte. You really can't go wrong with either of these models. So, before you upgrade your NAS, make sure it can handle the speed or the heat and power requirements. And if you're just using it for storage, like long-term storage and backups, you probably don't need the speed, although you may need the capacity. And also make sure your NAS actually supports 6 terabyte drives before you stuff them in there and find out you're only seeing 4 terabytes. That would be bad. So now that I've skipped ahead, I apologize to everyone. Man, AMD Radeon R9 Nano review. It seems like this review's been a month in the making.
I haven't had it that long. I know that the announcement process.
Well, it was like there was like the teases, then the announcement, and then like there was pictures released, and then you finally got your hands on one. And I guess it comes down to, does the tiny Fury X perform?
It does. So this is the R9 Nano. For size comparison, this is a mini ITX motherboard.
Awesome.
Right. Also, just to grind things in a little bit, this does have a Core i7 6700K in it. This is a Z170i MSI motherboard, mini ITX motherboard, the first Skylake mini ITX motherboard. And you can see if you install this GPU in here, you then have what is essentially like probably the highest performance, or almost the highest performance, small form factor machine that you could possibly really have here. And, you know, get a riser card out of this.
I was going to say, 90-degree angle riser card on that. I want that.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. Let's do that way. Yeah, I think we can make that happen. So the R9 Nano, it is a full Fiji GPU, the same shader count, texture count, memory size, memory speed as the Radeon Fury X, but it runs at a lower clock speeds. If you look through our review, we can actually quantify what those lower clock speeds are now. So while the Fury X runs at 1,050 megahertz, and it pretty much runs at that the whole time, this card, it doesn't have a water cooler. Using an air cooler. It's a vapor chamber cooler, so it's a fairly advanced air cooler. But it runs anywhere from, in my testing, we saw average clock speeds as low as 830 megahertz, and as high as like 960 megahertz, just depending on the game and depending on the resolution. You run at 4K, it's going to run a little bit lower clocks than it does at 25 by 14. Why does it do that? Because it is sticking inside a 175 watt thermal limit. Right, so if you look at the connection here, you only got one 8-pin power connector, and it has a TDP of 175 watts out of the box, and it basically adjusts the clocks to maintain that thermal threshold. You can go into Catalyst Control Center, you can kind of overclock it by adjusting that power limit, and you will draw more power, and you will run at higher clocks and thus have better performance at the expense of more noise from your fan, more heat being generated inside of more than likely incredibly small case. One other thing worth noting, just in terms of physical design, this has 3 DisplayPort connections and 1 HDMI, so no DVI, and that HDMI port is only HDMI 1.4a. It is still not HDMI 2.0. So even though, in theory, this could have been one of the best, if not the best, home theater PC graphics cards, without HDMI 2.0, it's kind of hard to make that recommendation. AMD tells us that there will be active DisplayPort to HDMI 2.0 adapters available relatively soon, but haven't seen it, haven't tested it. Don't know how much they're going to cost. My guess is not exceptionally inexpensive. Let's talk about a couple of things on the card. Performance-wise, this is within 5 to 10%, maybe even like 4 to 7% of the AMD Radeon Fury, the full-length card. and it's within 15%, 10 to 15% of the AMD Fury X. So this is a fairly high performance video card.
That's
All
impressive.
things being equal. Yeah, and that's on 25 by 14, and that's at 4K. And it does so. It's a little bit louder. The fan movement is there. Also, this card has coil whine. It has PWM, kind of like an inductor based vibration sound that comes when you're playing a game. You know, higher frame rates, you have a higher pitch sound, lower frame rates, you have a lower pitch sound. If you've been around GPUs for a long time, you've probably heard coil whine from time to time. This card has that exceptionally badly. It is less noticeable than I expected it to be when installing this in a case, right? On an open test bed with it sitting like basically from here to here, it was awful, right?
Ouch.
And it was immediately noticeable. When we put it in a case, we put it in like a Cooler Master CM110, which is a mini ITX case that won't support full-size graphics cards. And when you add in the air movement of this fan and you add in the air movement of your CPU fan and the case fan, it starts to drone it out. We did a recording. If you watch our video review, you'll see we actually do kind of like a A/B test of here it is with the AMD Radeon R9 Nano installed, and here it is with the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970 mini ITX card from Asus. And they're both kind of loud, right? But we're not looking to measure loudness. We were looking to measure what the tone was and what the I don't know, what the texture of the sound might be. And you can definitely tell a difference when you do that. What else? I mean, it's a pretty good card. Like, I mean, it's expensive. I guess if we should talk about that next, it's $650. So it's the same price as the Fury X. It's $100 more than the Fury. It's about the same price of a 980 Ti, right? But you have to keep in mind that this is a 6-inch graphics card, this is kind of an interesting comparison. This is a GTX 750 Ti that I happen to have sitting there by the test bed. You can kind of see like the PCB lengths are very similar. The Nano is just a little bit longer, but this card, you know, being a very power efficient, I think this was a 75 watt TDP card. This is 175 watts, so it's obviously a different beast. But the compactness of this is really, really impressive. It's not a card for everybody though, and I feel like that needs to be made abundantly clear. If you have room for a full size graphics card, a 10-inch, 11-inch graphics card, do not buy this. Right, you can get the same performance, a little bit more, and buy like an AMD Fury or a GTX 980, right, and actually save money while you do it as well. If you are somebody who is been eyeing a particular case that requires you to have a small form factor graphics card, but you don't want to sacrifice on GPU performance, this is your best option. The best option from NVIDIA is there's a MSI and an Asus GTX 970 mini ITX offering. But they're significantly less expensive first, but they're significantly lower performance as well, anywhere from 30 to 40% lower performance. So this is it's an interesting product. It's kind of like it's a niche for a mini ITX build, and then it's a niche of that niche to be in a mini ITX build that needs a very small graphics card. And I don't know. I think AMD is kind of doing a smart thing by like not selling this for $450 or not selling it for $550 because they're going to sell out of it anyway. I really believe that. Like they're having enough trouble getting Fiji GPUs out and about, and HBM production is kind of difficult based on all we're hearing. So, you know, take this. They're kind of defining a new classification of card, which is a super high performance but very small form factor design. It's made possible by their move to HBM instead of GDDR5 memory, and price it and market it as a enthusiast class kind of like part that, you know, you want to strive to own. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to complain about the pricing on it, and it's completely justified to do that. But if you have room for a different card, don't buy it. I mean, it's pretty blunt, right? Like if you have room for a different card, like don't buy it. You could buy an AMD or an NVIDIA. I don't really care, but don't buy this one. This one is for people that have a very specific use case in mind, like case modders that are kind of trying to do something very specific while still being able to drive 4K displays and get good frame rates at high resolutions, we'll find a lot of reasons to like this card as well. I think it'll be interesting to see how all that that pans out. And it is actually available today and for sale based on looking around Amazon and Newegg, which is a welcome change after the Skylake release that you can relate to. So,
not me.
Yeah.
I'm not bitter about that at all. So, props to the Nano delivering the goods. And yeah, I think Ryan made it abundantly clear. If you have space for a bigger card, buy the bigger card and get more performance for less money. That said, it would be fun to see what people do with some of the mini ITX platforms, especially with riser cards that right angle the GPU above the motherboard itself. Now we just want to figure out a better way to run like a 400-watt power supply to a mini ITX system without having to deal with a full mini ITX enclosure. But that's a problem.
And that's kind of the card allows you to think in directions like that you might not have been able to do otherwise, right? Which is really interesting, and it's an expensive part, but I think a company, especially in the position that AMD's in, is just kind of like, okay, we've created this kind of new niche category of product, and let's see who wants it and what they can do with it, and go from there. Maybe the next time, the next architecture, they won't release it at the same performance level with that, and maybe they'll back down some, kind of like NVIDIA has with the GTX 970, or maybe NVIDIA responds the other way and says, well, we're going to figure out a way to make a 6-inch graphics card or 6.5-inch graphics card based on a full Maxwell GPU or something like that, and we get some additional competition in that direction. It'll be interesting to see the rest of the year.
We wait with bated breath. Man, I saw some bizarre email messages on a thread I'm on this morning along the lines of AMD is going to get rid of the only thing, or ATI is going to get rid of the only thing that's awesome, AMD. But it was curious because to me, and much like you, it made perfect sense. They've essentially turned they've taken the GPU group at ATI, made that the Radeon Technologies group. They made Raja Koduri the senior vice president and chief architect of the Radeon Technologies group. And sort of, I think it's cool AMD has done this. They've essentially created an ATI group inside of, or a GPU group inside of the organization. I'm going to quote Mr. Ryan Shrout. While this might be a little bit of an inside baseball announcement to discuss, Raj is one of the few people in the industry that I have known since day one, and he is an outstanding and important person in the graphics world as we know it today. Will sort of, compartmentalizing or creating an ATI group or a GPU group inside, or the Radeon, group inside of AMD, is that going to allow them to be more responsive and more competitive with NVIDIA?
I hope so, and I think that's kind of the goal of the transition, right? So it's hard to kind of define. I don't really know specifically what it is. A lot of people have said it's like splitting off internally inside the company. You have a CPU group and a GPU group. But APUs are still a big thing for this company, which combine both of those technologies. So I'm not exactly sure how they balance that. But anything that makes the GPU division more agile, and I think maybe even more important than that is what you said, is more responsive, whether that be to external requests or external forces, or internal requests and internal forces, I think is a big advantage. I've known Raja for a long time. He's a great guy. He is one of those people that will get stuff done and is kind of a no-nonsense guy. He came back to AMD. He was at ATI for a long time, was there during the AMD days, went to Apple for a little while, came back, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago. It was a little bit longer than that, because he came back right at the time when we were going through all that frame rating issue, right, where you had the crossfire issues on AMD graphics cards. And he was kind of one of the first people to come up to me and say, okay, I'm back. I don't know what's going on. Explain it all to me. Let me go research it. And he came back and said, yeah, it's broken. We're going to fix it. And they did. Maybe it took longer than I wanted it to, but they did fix it. And I think he has that mentality going forward with a lot of things. So
that's awesome.
He's in charge of the business side as well as the hardware and the software development. So he could make decisions on, hey, we're going to work with game developers in this way, and we're going to change how we do driver development this way, and this is going to be the direction for the next generation of architecture. So he's kind of, he reports directly to the CEO and has apparently total control over that, right? Obviously, there's restraints and everything, but I honestly believe he is one of the best people to take that position there. And I have more faith in AMD's ability to recover from their 18% market share that we talked about a couple of weeks ago with this transition than I'd had before it. So
I think that counts as a thumbs up for Mr. Ryan Shrout.
it does, yeah.
So we should take a moment to thank our second sponsor in this episode of TWiCH. Ryan, would you tell the people about ProXPN?
I can absolutely do that. If you have ever been one of the people, maybe you are interested in securing your internet connection a little bit, maybe having a little bit of more privacy. ProXPN is a global VPN, which is a virtual private network. It works with any internet connection. It creates a secure, encrypted tunnel through which all of your online data passes back and forth, both directions. Any online application can work with this ProXPN service, including your web browser, your email, your file sharing, instant messaging programs. It keeps everything you do online hidden from other people's prying eyes, disguising your physical location, giving you unfettered access to any website or online service, no matter where you live or travel to. And those should be some keywords that some of our listeners should likely pay attention to, right? So unfettered access to online services no matter where you live or travel to. There's zero logging, unlike other VPNs. ProXPN keeps no record of your online activity. It has complete privacy through a 512-bit encryption tunnel and a 2048-bit encryption key. It works via OpenVPN or PPTP, your choice there. No IPv6 traffic leakage or DNS hijacking. ProXPN is fully protected and up to date. Protect yourself against your ISP's 6 strikes rule. I thought it was lower strikes than that, but hey, at least there's some progress there. You protect yourself from monitoring and throttling. You can bypass internet filtering, bypass geographical restrictions for internet content and online video with worldwide servers in the US, UK, Asia, and more, with more servers and improved speed recently added. ProXPN software for Windows and Mac offers advanced controls. You can select ports, connect at startup, even select which program should be shut down if your anonymous connection is ever interrupted. It also works with your iOS and Android device, allowing you to use your data plan or public corporate Wi-Fi with complete and total privacy on the go. Even Steve Gibson gave it a great review on Security Now. If you go to proxpn.com/twit for more information and to sign up, ProXPN premium accounts are normally $9.98 a month. We've got a special offer for our listeners, obviously. If you use the code TWiCH at checkout, that's TWiCH, you'll receive $50 off the monthly price when you sign up for a 12-month subscription. That's less than $5 a month when you sign up for the year. And it's good for the lifetime of your account. If you're not satisfied, you can cancel within 7 days for a full refund. So go to proxpn.com/twit and sign up with the code TWiCH, TWiCH. ProXPN accepts payments through Visa, PayPal, and Bitcoin, which I guess you would expect for that type of service. We thank ProXPN for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware.
Oh my goodness. Grado SR225E headphone review, Audio Bliss for $200. I am not particularly shocked by this review by Josh Walrath, in part because I am holding right here a pair of Grado SR220E headphones. And ironically, I was talking to the senior Jonathan Grado, or John Grado, on the phone this morning about cartridges, vinyl record, audio LP cartridges, filling in some gigantic holes in my knowledge about how the music gets from the groove on the vinyl platter and out through the back of the headphone and into the or out of the back of the cartridge, through the diamond needle, through the stylus, and out the back of the record player into your phono preamp, which was a pretty interesting conversation. Grado's an interesting company. I've been using their headphones for 20 years. They started out as basically making record needles, or more accurately, record cartridges. The founder of the company, the elder Mr. Grado, was trained as a watchmaker, came up with a better idea for a stylus that was patented. And what you're looking right there, go back to that picture again. This is the brownstone in Brooklyn, essentially, where they make Grado headphones and cartridges. And I laugh because because Josh got caught up in a thing that a lot of people do when they see Grado headphones, where they're like, you know, they've changed their designs basically like 3 times in the last 25 years. Everything is about what comes out of here and goes into your ear, because you know, the pizza box, as it is known. If you scroll down, you'll see there's sort of this leafy, grassy picture with a box on top of it. They're actually scroll up a little bit. There's a photo higher up on the page. But what you're looking at, but you get the basic idea. There's not, it's a real simple box. They're obviously not wasting money on the box.
Yep.
You know, there's a whole bunch of foam inside of there. The box are protected. The cable is fat, although the copper, it's not completely filled with copper, but the idea is that they have a pretty heavy or robust level of construction. Quote, the one aspect that could make or break for users is the open air design. Ambient noise has a tendency to make it through these speakers. If a user were to take these to a large LAN party or listen to a portable music device on the subway, then outside noises will make it into the headphones. So yeah, what you're looking at there is essentially a grill. And what that allows is these, you know, what Grados are known as the signature sound. They have a huge, most of the music is in their mid-range, and most what Grados are about are creating what they call a sound stage, or sort of the idea that you are not just hearing like, okay, I'm listening to jazz, but I'm listening to jazz and getting as much of the ambiance or feel of the room it was recorded in as the microphones and the audio recording engineers' art will allow through. They're super adjustable. The headphone pads, you'll either love them or hate them. They are literally handmade in Brooklyn, New York. They start with the Grado SR60Es, which start at about $70. Josh says, I tried multiple applications of these headphones and tested them on multiple platforms. Most testing was done on an Asus Crosshair Ranger, which features a really robust and flexible audio solution. Built-in amps that can push headphones up to 600 ohms, which is way more powerful than you'll need for these headphones. I also plugged it into my LG G3 cell phone to listen to several musical choices. Finally, I watched a movie using my Sony SDR DH800 receiver. You know, the first thing a user notices is the tight bass that these units provide. They're not overly big and boomy, but the listener can also discern the pitch and tone of these lower frequencies much better than in more mainstream headphones where bass is overpresented. Soundstage for effects and dialogue is very good, even with no post-processing. You know, they're really good headphones. As Josh says, they do it very, very well. Closing my eyes and really listening without external distractions is what these were made for. They sound very spacious, but do not distort. The soundstage really is expansive. Using very good source material is a must, but they sound good even with subpar recordings. Clarity is outstanding, but it still has enough give to smooth over poorer quality recordings. They do shine with good source material, though. And that's a big deal. It's funny, the whole you know, they do a really beautiful job of bringing the music to your ears. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
The SR225E started about $200. You know, quote, these are a significant step up from the SR125 models that I reviewed over a decade ago. I would agree with that. You know, if you don't have a lot of money, Grados SR60s, SR60Es are a fantastic entry-level headphone. I'd put them right alongside Sony's MDR 7506s, which is a very different kind of headphone. And, you know, if you need something that you can throw down the stairs to the subway, pick up, put on your ears, and listen to, I would go with the Sonys over the Grados. But these are pretty badass, and Josh gave them an editor's choice, and I would completely agree with that, having spent, boy, a lot of time listening to these headphones. I bought my first pair of SR225s like in 95, 97.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. I will be the first to admit that I'm only recently kind of coming into the idea of higher fidelity audio. And so I will listen to your input in that respect. So
it's a slippery slope. They're good headphones. Great to make.
I don't need to find different ways to spend money. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, but yeah, and the open air headphones and small children screaming are not necessarily the best mix, but you can use them
That's
in the
true.
office. You can use
Fair
them in
enough.
the office all day
Yeah.
long. E for 2015 Asus Republic of Gamer Swift PG348Q 34-inch 21 by 9 100 Hertz IPS G-Sync monitor. Another G-Sync monitor. I don't know at what point we stopped getting excited about more G-Sync and FreeSync monitors. Is that a rude thing to say? I mean, this one's really interesting because, of course, it's 21 by 9, so it is super wide.
Yep.
A curved 34-inch 21 by 9 display. I thought the idea of these was kind of silly until I got hands-on with a Dell 21 by 9 display at CES and decided I wanted it very badly. Because
it's interesting for me that I have a couple of 21 by 9 34 35-inch displays in here now, but we don't have any of the G-Sync ones. We've seen 2 announced, one Acer and this one, maybe a third one from BenQ. And I just really want to get these in, right? And this is an interesting one because first of all, I love the way it looks, right? It has a terrific industrial design, very kind of aggressive, gamery looking with I still think would actually look neat as well. It's still a very functional stand. It still has height adjustment and angle adjustment and all that type of stuff. But it's a 3440 by 1440 resolution. So it's the higher end resolution for this form factor. And it has a 100 Hertz refresh rate as opposed to a 60 or a 75 that is all I have seen up until now. Right. So I think we're probably hitting limitations of the DisplayPort connection bandwidth. I have to do some more math in my head, but I think that may be why we're kind of maxing out at 100. So it's IPS, 100 Hertz, 3440 by 1440, 21 by 9 resolution, 21 by 9 aspect ratio. I think this is going to be a really awesome monitor. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. We say here in this news post, it's probably going to be expensive. No idea when it's going to be available. But I'm kind of getting tired of seeing announcements, and I really want to see monitors now, like actually ship them and send them out and sell them so we can actually get hands-on with them and see how it works.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is the ROG PG348Q. It looks pretty damn nice.
And that about sums it up.
Yeah.
Because that's about all you can say until one is in for testing. Gigabyte releases Z170X UD5 TH motherboard with Thunderbolt 3. Probably our first Thunderbolt 3 sighting.
It is.
Sebastian
It is.
Peak wrote this up. Did he have anything to test Thunderbolt 3 with?
No, we don't have. That's the problem. We don't really have any Thunderbolt 3 devices. And we were talking about this in the podcast last night. We don't know if there's any kind of adapters to go from the mini DisplayPort connection of Thunderbolt 1 and 2 to the USB Type-C connection of Thunderbolt 3. And if you can even do that technically, and if you can, where those adapters may or may not exist, but then you wouldn't see the performance advantages of Thunderbolt 3 because you'd be using legacy hardware. So we're still kind of waiting for stuff to come out using Thunderbolt 3. Where you're getting 40 gigabits per second of bandwidth per Thunderbolt 3 header, which they have 2 of, right? So we have, I don't want to say limitless, but we have more bandwidth on this motherboard and this platform than you'll be able to use more than likely, right? So I'm curious to see what the kind of desktop usage and implementations are for Thunderbolt 3 versus mobile. Like I understand how a mobile system can really take advantage of that kind of external bandwidth through docking and external connections and external storage. But if you're building a full-size ATX PC, what do you do with that? Is it for displays? Is it for external storage? Is it for networking? You can do Thunderbolt point-to-point networking at 40 gigabits per second, which sounds awesome too. So we'll have to see. But this is the first board to actually be certified for Thunderbolt 3. I guess that's step 1, right? It's the first product to actually ship ready. Now we need more products that are ready.
More products. More products.
Please.
More products, people. Casper, ladies and gentlemen, and I've heard us mention this name before, is a manufacturer of mattresses. And let me tell you something. If you've been having difficulty sleeping, You probably need to step away from the gaming machine, spend less time on the interwebs. Just give up on Facebook and start sleeping more and going to bed at a reasonable hour. If you find that your mattress is just a mess, if you've been using the same mattress you inherited from your parents 20 years ago or 10 years ago, or you've been noticing that hole, that dip, that lump in the side of your mattress just keeps getting lower, you might consider Casper. They're an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. It's pretty cool. They are online. They ship what essentially amounts to a shrink-wrap deflated mattress to your home. They want to revolutionize the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing that savings directly to the consumer. Having grown up with a family in the furniture industry and having recently bought a mattress that turned out to be a horrible deal, and having thoroughly researched it, shopping for a mattress sucks. And that's what's kind of nice about Casper's system. They call it an obsessively engineered mattress at a fair price. They're using latex and memory foam. The idea that they want to bring those two technologies to give you a better night and brighter days. Just the right sink and bounce, provides long-lasting comfort and support so your spine doesn't feel horrible. You can buy it easily online and completely risk-free. They want you to actually try sleeping on a Casper mattress, free delivery, painless returns within 100 days, so you don't have to lie down in a showroom and pretend you're sleeping. Quote, statistically, lying on a bed, says Casper, has no correlation to whether it is the right bed for you. I can't really argue with that at all. 20 minutes on a bed in a mattress shop has very little relationship to what you're doing at night. Casper's mattresses are made in the USA. And if you haven't bought a mattress in a while, just take a calm breath because these prices are actually pretty good. $500 for a twin, $950 for a king size. That is outstanding compared to industry averages. Because the industry, it's kind of funny. If you see a coupon for a mattress, hey, find this mattress somewhere else and we'll match their price. You're not going to, because mattress makers manufacture new lines with new names for every single major vendor out there. So you can't actually price compare and shop. It's really frustrating. But what you can do is go to Casper.com/Twitch, enter in the promo code Twitch, get $50 off as one of our audience members. That's Casper.com/Twitch. Use the promo code Twitch. They will send you a mattress. You're going to have to pay for it. If you don't like it, if it doesn't, if you don't sleep better, if it doesn't make your nights better within 100 days, you can ship it back to them. That's a pretty cool trial period. That's a long, extended, get used to your new mattress kind of experience. I think it's pretty cool. So we want to thank Casper for supporting This Week in Computer Hardware and remind you to go to Casper.com/Twitch and enter in the promo code Twitch if you're thinking about buying a new mattress. Leo loves his. If you haven't seen the video, it's spectacular watching Leo do the sort of plunge onto a freshly unwrapped Casper mattress. But I got to say, ordering a mattress online sounds a lot better than dealing with the high-pressure experience you may encounter at your local mattress store. Perhaps you have a relaxed, genteel mattress store by you. I don't.
I've never heard of such a thing, to be honest.
It's a dream, man. Casper.com/Twitch, promo code Twitch. Please check them out. And we want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. iBook Guy is going nuts with the old school graphics. This is pretty cool. If you're kind of curious about where graphics came from.
It's a really cool video series. This is the second one. I don't know if we mentioned the first one on Twitch before. But they're basically explaining how early computers struggled to draw screens, how to draw color graphics when they lacked enough RAM to even hold a single frame buffer, right? So you didn't have enough memory to hold all the pixels that were being drawn on the screen. So how did programmers figure out how to draw graphics and make games and do all that kind of stuff around with it? The second episode looks at the Apple II and Atari 2600 graphics, which did color images differently. Both systems operate on a single line at a time rather than an 8x8 grid, though their specific methods are very different. They even talk about, he goes into the Apple II's color graphics were so complex that really only a handful of people ever really learned and figured out how to do color graphics on that device. It wasn't until the later versions of the Apple II would come out that kind of added more memory and thus simplified things from a programming standpoint. It's really, really interesting stuff, like things that you never would have noticed by just looking at it. But as it turns out, because of the way this is programmed and how you have to program it, you can never have these two colors next to each other. And that is why certain things of like art is designed in a way to address that, right? And it's like, well, okay, I can't do the things I want to do, so how do I hack around it? It was much more of a art. It was more art to like technically engineer graphics onto one of these types of systems than I had ever really imagined. So this one, apparently the next video series, whenever that will be, is going to deal with audio. So that might be interesting for us to follow up with as well. So it's really, really interesting. If you look at kind of like we just talked about the R9 Nano that has a 1,000 megahertz clock speed and 7 or 8 teraflops per second or teraflops of compute capability, and then go back and look at what things were like not that long ago in terms of graphical fidelity and how you had to go about doing it. So if you go to PCPart.com and look for the iBook Guy, all one word, news post there, we'll have the videos embedded in there, and you can also find the previous video as well. Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Pretty cool stuff. We got a couple questions we should address. It's kind of funny. I am slowly amassing parts for my Skylake build. You saw the ECS. I got to say, normally I don't go for the tactical motherboard names, but Claymore is an awesome name for a motherboard.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about giant swords or anti-personnel mines, it's a good name. AR Murray 1 tweets, are the recent AMD Radeon leadership changes going to have any effect on the CPU side of things?
I don't think so. So Raja moving up to the top of the Radeon section really doesn't affect what Jim Keller is doing over on the CPU section. So I really do believe that AMD has two top-level people kind of in charge of those divisions now. But no, I don't think the changes that were made this week will really affect CPU. It will be interesting to see how it affects APUs, if the separation makes APU development more complex. There were some rumors going around that maybe AMD was doing this because they were trying to sell off one division or the other, so they needed to have this separation kind of in place to see how it worked, like maybe sell off the graphics division to somebody or sell off the CPU division to somebody. I don't really see that happening because so much of what they have been building towards is kind of on the APU side, which is a combination of both. So I would probably not see that split occurring, I guess.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was complaining about the lack of USB 3.0 support on the new iPhone 6S and 6S Pro, and got a lot of pushback. I was laughing because a lot of people basically were like, don't you use the wireless transfer for backing up your phone? So we will, it's interesting because I just updated to an 802.11ac router. So I am curious to see if the 802.11ac support makes the experience, because 802.11ac routers will actually make 802.11n run faster. So I will experiment and get back to everybody in the next week or two to see whether or not the wireless things work better than the wired experiences. But previously, my wired transfers, wired transfers or backups on the iPhone were problematic. So I'm kind of curious to see if they work better.
Right.
I just want to bring that up because I was noticing as I was pulling tweets out of the Twitter feed, as it were. Richard Fraser, is the Nook or similar systems up to 4K video playback or normal use for games? Boy, Richard, 4K gaming, if we're not talking about, say, Bejeweled, if we're talking about actual 3D gaming, the short answer is no. In fact, we were talking about it. I had an interview with the lovely Ryan Shrout on Techzilla this week. Techzilla, Tech Thing, TEKTHING.com. tech thing this week. One of the things I asked is there a single card solution to 4K gaming? And the answer is yes, if you turn the settings way down. But if you're spending thousands for a 4K monitor and you want a 4K experience, you still want multiple GPUs. And the Nook is many things, but it is not the host of multiple AMD or NVIDIA top-level GPUs, which is really what you need to experience 3D gaming on 4K. Now, if you want video playback on a 4K monitor, then you get into the sort of HDMI 2.0 question or the DisplayPort question on your monitor. In terms of video playback or using your desktop computing on 4K, yeah, you're going to be able to do that on a Nook. In terms of 60 frames per second on a 4K television, it's funny. Does the Nook have HDMI 2.0? I guess you'd go DisplayPort, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it does not have HDMI 2.0, so you'd have to go DisplayPort. Like I said, eventually maybe we'll have those DisplayPort to HDMI 2.0 adapters, but for now you'd kind of be limited to display connectivity as opposed to TV connectivity. Yeah.
Yeah. So the short answer is,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say probably not if you want to do serious gaming. Probably okay if it's a desktop or a simple multimedia PC. At Space Bob, any bottlenecks? SL line GTX 970 on PCI Express 2.0 16x 16x with an AMD 8350.
No, I mean PCI 2. No, you'll be fine there. It's obviously a little bit slower in PCI 3. It's possible you maybe see a little bit higher kind of frame latency between those cards, but no, I don't think there's going to be any issue running that. We ran on PCI 2.0 by 16 lanes for a long time. You should be fine. Yeah,
quite happily actually. And one last one before we go. Michael says, how do I send video to a TV and audio to a receiver using HDMI on a 780 Ti SLI? I did not see the option on the control panel. And my first thought is like, shouldn't it just sense that?
So I think his issue is he's trying to send video to the TV, but audio to a different location to the receiver.
Right. Usually I would do a pass-through AV receiver and then send the video from the AV receiver to the television.
Both should be able to do that. Yeah, you either send HDMI to a receiver, but I've also know that TVs can accept the HDMI, and then you can use optical to pass the audio signal from the TV to the receiver, right? And I know some people do that if your receiver doesn't have HDMI inputs on it, but there's no function of the GPU that does that directly. That's on the other pieces of hardware to figure that out. Sorry.
So much pain and trauma. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to bring this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware to a close. As you might expect, a whole lot of Apple conversation with Shannon and myself on Tech Thing this week. And of course, we have that interview with Ryan talking about the incredibly large slate of Skylake processors from 4.5 watts to 91 watts, and when we can expect Skylake laptops and some other good stuff there, including GPU picks from $100 on up. And on PC Per this week, anything exciting you can tease, or is everything under NDA still at this point?
Yeah, I think everything else is kind of in a stationary point for us. Yeah, I think I have to bypass on that one this week. Cool stuff, though. Interesting
stuff. Oh, my goodness. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you can find each and every episode of This Week in Computer Hardware at twit.tv/Twitch. You can subscribe, get the information for subscribing there on iTunes or any other podcatcher you like. The RSS feed is available there. All the episodes are available there. And, of course, you can find Mr. Shrout at Ryan Shrout on Twitter. I'm at Patrick Norton. You can get more of us at TechThing or techthing.com or youtube.com/TechThing or at PCPer.com. And if you're not following PC Per on Twitter, you should, because there's awesomeness afoot. If you haven't been to PCPer.com this week, you should go, because there's a lot of good stuff there.
Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. Lots of good stuff, people. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.